In 2005, Rockstar was truly living up to its name. Over the past 4 years, the studio had released a string of standout titles, but its work on Grand Theft Auto had completely reshaped the gaming landscape. San Andreas took the world by storm, setting a new bar for open world games, and it was only natural that Rockstar would want to keep that momentum going. But instead of trying to outdo San Andreas on the aging PlayStation 2, Rockstar took an unexpected approach, bringing Grand Theft Auto to the handheld market. The result being Liberty City Stories, a PlayStation Portable exclusive prequel to Grand Theft Auto 3, designed to bring the full Grand Theft Auto experience to a portable console. For the first time in the series, Rockstar expanded on an existing city and its characters, crafting a story that seamlessly fits into the established lore. Set 3 years before Grand Theft Auto 3, Liberty City Stories not only revisited familiar locations, but also set up key events that shaped the world of Liberty City. Despite being an ambitious entry, Liberty City Stories often gets overshadowed by its predecessors, San Andreas and Vice City most notably. There are several reasons for this. It was a spin-off title with many reused assets, launching on the PlayStation Portable, a console that many, including myself in 2005, did not own, and even when it was ported to the PlayStation 2 8 months later, that console was nearing the end of its life, with the PlayStation 3 just around the corner. And for over a decade, the game remained locked to the PSP and the PS2, only resurfacing on mobile and Fire TV, hardly some platforms that hardcore gamers are playing. It's true that Liberty City Stories was a step down in scale compared to San Andreas, but that was inevitable given the hardware limitations of a handheld system. However, in many ways, it refined the GTA 3 experience, from gameplay to UI, writing, and overall atmosphere. Liberty City Stories offers the best way to explore Liberty City, at least in the 3D universe. And for that reason alone, I think it deserves more recognition.
Well, how do I know I ain't about to be shaken down by every dirty cop from here to Vice City?
I'm gonna help you take over this town.
Liberty City Stories takes players back to 1998, 3 years before the events of Grand Theft Auto 3. The game follows Tony Cipriani, a loyal enforcer for the Leone crime family, who had just returned to Liberty City after years in hiding. Tony was forced to lay low after carrying out a hit on a made man, an assassination that was ordered by Don Salvatore Leone himself. But Tony's return isn't the warm welcome that he was expecting. His little murder threw Liberty City into some turmoil, igniting a brutal power struggle between the city's most dangerous factions. The Forelli and the Sandaco crime families are looking to exploit the Leone's weakened grip, street gangs are growing bolder, and corrupt politicians are playing both sides. What was once a delicate balance of power has turned into an all-out war for control of the city. Now, Tony must climb his way back up the ranks, proving his worth to Salvatore Leone and helping restore the family's dominance. As he takes on some dirty jobs, eliminates rivals, and navigates betrayals in the game, he becomes caught up in a web of crime, corruption, and shifting alliances that will shape Liberty City's future. Unlike previous Grand Theft Auto games, Liberty City Stories serves as a prequel, expanding on an existing world and filling in the gaps of Liberty City's history. The game not only brings back familiar locations from GTA 3, but also shows how the city evolved, from the political landscape to the criminal underworld. In 1998, Liberty City wasn't just a battleground for the mafia. Politically, Mayor Roger C. Hull's corrupt administration is crumbling, paving the way for his opponent Donald Love to seize power with scummy tactics and backroom deals. Law enforcement is deeply compromised, with officers willing to turn a blind eye to organized crime in exchange for bribes and political favors. And meanwhile, the media is fueling hysteria, with talk radio shows stirring public paranoia and sensationalizing Liberty City's crime wave. Hell, one reporter in the game is even ordering crimes to be done in order to report on them exclusively. At the same time, the criminal underworld is shifting. The once powerful Leone family is facing resistance from the Forellis and the Sandacos, who are aggressively expanding their influence. The Yakuza and the Triads are also making power plays, and the city's street gangs such as the Diablos and the Yardis are taking advantage of all the chaos to establish their own footholds. Even the infrastructure of Liberty City is changing, with major redevelopment projects underway, projects that are mostly funded by dirty money and used as tools for criminal expansion. But translating this version into reality was no small feat. Unlike its predecessors, Liberty City Stories wasn't built for powerful home consoles. It had to bring the full Grand Theft Auto experience to a handheld device for the first time. Rockstar faced an immense challenge. How do you take a sprawling open world crime saga and adapt it to the technical limitations of the PlayStation Portable without losing what makes Grand Theft Auto special? From engine overhauls to innovative storage techniques, let's take a look at how Rockstar reinvented Liberty City for the PlayStation Portable and changed handheld gaming forever.
Hey, someone dropped $1. Oh.
Liberty City Stories was developed jointly by Rockstar Leeds and Rockstar North, making the first fully 3D Grand Theft Auto title on a handheld platform. Rockstar Leeds, led by studio director Gordon Hall, was formerly known as Mobius Entertainment, and were brought into the Rockstar ecosystem after Rockstar was impressed with their work on the Game Boy Advance ports of Max Payne. They handled the primary development on Liberty City Stories, while Rockstar North, the team that was behind the GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, provided support and oversight, and this collaboration ensured that the game maintained the series' quality and continuity even on new hardware. I know a lot of people think that LCS was Rockstar just tossing us some scraps between development times of console GTA titles, because damn, waiting 4 years back then for a new title was unheard of. But actually, development on Liberty City Stories began well before the PlayStation Portable was even released. In fact, Rockstar had early access to PlayStation Portable development kits. They were among the first developers on the platform, and work on LCS actually spanned over 2 years' time. Rather than simply porting up an existing GTA, the team decided to start fresh. They rebuilt the city from the ground up with all new assets and code, treating Liberty City Stories as a brand new product, designed to be the PSP's must-have game. This meant Liberty City Stories would feature an original storyline, missions, and features despite taking place in a familiar location. And they really leaned into this during press releases. Most people figured that Rockstar would just come out and make a port of a game because handheld games weren't really seen as anything really special before the PSP came out, particularly when it came to established console game franchises having handheld only titles. But the PSP was a game changer. It was the first handheld console to provide a console-like gaming experience in a portable format, and Rockstar wanted to push this platform to its limits, just like they did with the PlayStation 2. And they sure did. Fully voice-acted cutscenes and missions, vast open world design equal to what Grand Theft Auto 3 did on the PlayStation 2, several radio stations with tons of songs, and even more original broadcasts, side missions, collectibles, really everything you would expect from a Grand Theft Auto title. This ambitious vision set the tone for the development process, pushing the team to overcome technical constraints and pack as much content as possible into the PSP's UMD disc. The PSP was a monster of a machine, but realistically the hardware still lagged behind the PlayStation 2, so some finessing was required by Rockstar. And this resulted in Liberty City Stories being the first of its era not built on the renderware engine, dropping it entirely for the new engine designed from scratch around the PlayStation Portable. The engine was tailored to handle the Portable's resolution, smaller memory, and unique GPU, and putting in the elbow grease really paid off, as the game runs near 30 frames per second with full draw distance and decent traffic and pedestrian density, which is pretty freaking sick on this little piece of hardware. The entire city with all of its content had to fit on a 1.8 gigabyte UMD disc as well, making every asset and texture needing to be fine-tuned to be as slim as possible while also presenting something impressive. Rockstar North shared their compression tech with Leeds on this, and it resulted in the game being as lively and content dense as prior titles at a fraction of the memory space. Open world streaming, or loading world data on the fly, was also crucial to actually being an open world game, but constant UMD access could drain the PSP's battery quickly. The developers made fundamental changes to the way that streaming is accomplished to minimize reliance on the disc. Data on the UMD was meticulously organized so the game could load data in bursts and then spin down the disk. By streaming in occasional chunks rather than continuously, they reduced disk reads and preserved battery life. This resulted in the game being able to be played for several hours without sacrificing quality of gameplay. In interviews, the team at Leeds expressed pride that almost nothing was sacrificed in translating GTA's Living City to a portable form, and they even added to it. One notable addition was a multiplayer mode. Up to 6 players could free roam and play over local Wi-Fi, explaining that they chose 6 players as the sweet spot to allow a fun multiplayer experience without stripping out pedestrians or traffic. Any more players would have required compromising the world in some way. Overall, adapting GTA to the PSP pushed Rockstar's tech to new heights. The technical innovations not only made Liberty City Stories possible, but also laid groundwork for future handheld titles. The fact that Liberty City Stories managed to deliver a full-scale 3D Grand Theft Auto and a 4.3-inch screen was hailed as a landmark technical feat, and it showed with the numbers too. Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories became the best-selling game on the PlayStation Portable console at over 8 million copies sold. And number 2 right behind that was Vice City Stories at 5.6 million copies sold. So Rockstar definitely conquered another console with their titles. The game was also ported to the PlayStation 2, and that's actually the version that I'm playing for this video, and while it's not a perfect one-to-one port, it's pretty much identical to the PSP version in most ways. The biggest difference being the PSP's multiplayer mode, which the PS2 version dropped. But there are also some perks to the console version. Better controls, smoother gameplay, longer draw distances thanks to the PS2's beefier hardware, and a bunch of the PSP's glitches got patched up too. But for all intents and purposes, this video is discussing the PlayStation 2 version of the game. For as much as the technical feats as the PSP title was, the PS2 title just be better. The game's setting is a return to Liberty City, the same as Grand Theft Auto 3, but set 3 years earlier. This allowed the developers to tell a new story while leveraging a familiar city layout. According to Dan Houser, Rockstar's co-founder and lead writer, the time period was deliberately chosen to capture a unique cultural moment. When we did Liberty City Stories that was set in 98 or 99, we did a lot of premillennial tension, you know, Y2K, the world's gonna end stuff. And by setting the game in the late 90s, the story could riff on these Y2K fears, mafia upheavals, and a Liberty City on the cusp of a new millennium. This pre-9/11, pre-GTA 3 era gave the narrative a different tone, one of chaotic transition, which reflects throughout the whole game. Houser noted that by 2001, GTA 3's time, the Y2K fears had evaporated, and a wave of post-millennium optimism, even boredom, set in. Placing Liberty City Stories in 1998 let Rockstar make fun of that fleeting, end-of-the-century paranoia from a hindsight perspective. The team decided to focus the story on Tony Cipriani, a character that fans knew from Grand Theft Auto 3, where he was a mid-level mobster. In Liberty City Stories, Tony is the protagonist, returning to Liberty City after 4 years in hiding for killing a made man. This premise let Rockstar explore Tony's rise within the Leone crime family, and fill in backstory gaps from Grand Theft Auto 3. As an underling to the Don Salvatore Leone, Tony engages in mafia power struggles that ultimately shake Liberty City to its foundation, as the game's tagline suggests. Many characters from Grand Theft Auto 3 return in a younger form. Salvatore Leone, Donald Love, 8-Ball, Maria, giving the story a nostalgic feeling. The writers drew inspiration from classic mob drama themes, loyalty, family, betrayal, while injecting the signature Grand Theft Auto dark humor and late 90s pop culture references. Using an existing city was less a technical shortcut and more of a narrative opportunity. The team enjoyed showing Liberty City in a somewhat earlier stage of development, literally. Neighborhoods differ from how they appear in 2001. One district, Fort Staunton, is an Italian mob enclave in 1998, but ends up destroyed, clearing the way for a construction site seen in GTA 3. In interviews, Rockstar developers have highlighted that Liberty City Stories strikes a balance between continuity and originality. It had to align with events of Grand Theft Auto 3 to avoid contradictions, but it still stands alone as a compelling crime saga. Tony Cipriani's arc, from exiled hitman to rising mob capo, was crafted to give players a new protagonist with a relatable goal, earning respect and power while weaving in plenty of callbacks to GTA 3 for longtime fans.
You're a good kid, but shame on you.
The Grand Theft Auto series has always had a knack for casting voice actors that range from Hollywood heavy hitters to complete mystery legends who've probably never acted again. Liberty City Stories is no exception. While it didn't reach the star-studded level of Vice City with Ray Liotta, Burt Reynolds, and Danny Trejo, it still packed plenty of familiar voices, returning favorites, and some newcomers that did a great job. For starters, Tony Cipriani is voiced in Liberty City Stories by Danny Mastrogiorgio, and he does a good job. But as you may know, it is a change from Michael Madsen, who had voiced the character in GTA 3. There isn't an official reason for why Madsen didn't reprise his role. Maybe Rockstar didn't want to spend the money on him, as his fame had risen over the years, or maybe he just kind of turned it down. It's kind of weird though, considering he voiced several video games around the same time as this game. He was Detective Jack Frazinski from Narc, Shimano from Yakuza, and reprised his Mr. Blonde role in the Reservoir Dogs video game. So, I don't really know, but we don't get him this time in Liberty City Stories. Donald Love's voice actor also changed up. In GTA 3, he was voiced by Kyle MacLachlan, yes, Agent Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks, but in Liberty City Stories, Donald is now voiced by Will Janowitz, who, fun fact, also played Meadow's boyfriend Finn on The Sopranos. And this one works for the differences in temperament of the character. This version of Donald Love leans harder into the madness. He goes from slick real estate mogul to paranoid body-eating creep while trying to cover up murders and fake his own death. It's like watching a tech bro slowly unravel while reading Ayn Rand on a yacht. And Maria, Salvatore's coke-fueled wife, changed actors as well, from Debbie Mazar to Fiona Gallagher. Not the main character from Shameless, I don't think. Thankfully, Frank Vincent does return as Don Salvatore Leone, and he absolutely kills the role again for the third time. The guy is literally made to be a mobster. Starring in projects like Goodfellas, Casino, and The Sopranos, no one else could be Salvatore in my opinion. And Liberty City Stories is one of the biggest roles for the character, and Vincent owns it. R.I.P. to Frank Vincent. And 8-Ball returns very briefly, voiced again by Gangstar rapper Guru. Also, some new standout characters that were voiced well in my opinion. Vincenzo was voiced by Joe Lo Truglio, who you probably know as Boyle from Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Rizzo from Reno 911, and JD O'Toole was done creepily well by Greg Romero Wilson. One big conversation around Liberty City Stories is that it didn't have the A-list celebrity firepower of Vice City or San Andreas. No Ray Liotta, no Samuel L. Jackson, no James Woods. Instead, Rockstar leaned into solid character actors and consistent performances to sell the world, and honestly, it works. Liberty City Stories isn't trying to be a flashy pop culture mixtape. It's trying to tell a grimy, personal story about a mobster clawing his way back to power. And the voice cast kind of reflects that. Gritty, grounded, and just theatrical enough to keep things fun. I also want to shout out the radio in Liberty City Stories. While it's not as stacked as Vice City or San Andreas, it's got some bangers on it, particularly the station Liberty Jam, with some of the best late 90s rap songs out there. Twins from Big Pun and Fat Joe, Shook Ones from Mobb Deep, Rough Riders Anthem from DMX, and several more from Method Man, Noriega, Redman, Onyx, and Raekwon. Some of the best tracks in the whole franchise in my opinion. And the Liberty News broadcasts were also pretty sweet, happening several times in the game after key events that Tony does in the city, adding a slight dynamic feel to the radio that was nice. Nothing as crazy as San Andreas, but cool nonetheless.
Earlier today, an authoritative report was leaked to us disclosing a drug scandal amongst some of the nation's leading athletes.
With all this background on the game out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay changes, or lack thereof, that were brought about into the series' dive into the handheld gaming world. When it comes to gameplay, Liberty City Stories walks a tightrope between familiarity and reinvention. On the surface, it's classic 3D era Grand Theft Auto. You got open world exploration, chaotic urban gunfights, high speed chases, side missions, and an entire city that responds to your actions. But when you start comparing it to San Andreas, the series' previous mainline entry, the differences in scale, systems, and player freedom become much more apparent. Now, I'm gonna cut Rockstar some slack here. This was very much a game intended to be a PSP exclusive, and in no way advertised itself to be on the same caliber of game game as its PS2 predecessor. So yeah, it's not going to look as sharp or feel as detailed as San Andreas, but man, it really took a step back in a lot of ways. You can't swim, you can't eat, you can't climb walls, you can't crouch, no gambling, no stealth kills, no working out, no skill progression, no gang recruiting, no car modding, no bicycle riding, or dating girls. You can't fly planes, you can't fly helicopters, well, except for that one weird trick, but come on, that doesn't count anyway and you know it, and the cutscenes aren't really that good either. Half the time the person talking has their back turned to the camera just so they didn't have to animate the mouth movements, and when you can see their face, sometimes the mouth still doesn't move. It's like Rockstar just said, they'll get the idea. This doesn't mean that everything was worse though. See, at this time, most open world games were chasing San Andreas' tail, often stumbling over feature bloat and clunky execution. Liberty City Stories sidesteps that by playing into its strengths. It doesn't try to be the biggest or deepest, it focuses on being a refined, portable Grand Theft Auto game, with better mission structure, more vehicles, and improved writing. It's also worth mentioning that for all its limitations, Liberty City Stories still manages to feel lively and reactive. Pedestrians talk, gangs react to your reputation, and radio stations provide the biting satire that we've all come to expect. You may not be base jumping off Mount Chiliad or hitting the gym with CJ, but Tony Cipriani's Liberty City is still a sandbox worth getting lost in. But also, the game did change some things for the better. For one, the missions in Liberty City Stories are shorter and more tightly designed. Rockstar knew that players would be engaging with the game in shorter bursts on a handheld console, so they built missions that could be completed quickly but still feel meaningful. It ditches the multi-stage 15-minute odysseys of San Andreas in favor of more digestible chaos. Get in and get the job done and then get out. That decision, while born from hardware constraints, actually improves pacing for players who just want a hit of GTA without committing to larger sessions. LCS also brought a variety of new vehicles to Liberty City, with some really cool models, but also they brought motorcycles to the game as well. And they even added an in-universe explanation that gave the reason for there being motorcycles in 1998, but not 3 years later in 2001. In the game's manual and on the radio broadcasts in the game, they discuss a protest group trying to ban motorcycles in the city due to them being unsafe. So I guess by 2001, these protests were successful. Is this a silly thing to go in and justify a reason for? Absolutely. Do I respect it? Also, yes. Someone at Rockstar really hates continuity errors, and I appreciate them. Liberty City Stories was also the first 3D GTA to include a multiplayer mode. The PSP's Wi-Fi capability enabled Rockstar to add several multiplayer game types, races, death matches, etc., set in the open world. Capping it at 6 players was a design compromise to preserve the bustling city environment. Even in multiplayer, Liberty City still had traffic and pedestrians roaming around. Previous GTA games on the PlayStation 2 had no such multiplayer, aside from a limited 2-player mode in San Andreas that was pretty ass. So this was a significant new feature made possible by the hardware. Although the multiplayer was local only and somewhat limited, it demonstrated Rockstar's willingness to experiment with the GTA formula in spin-off titles. On top of these more innovative things, Liberty City Stories was also jam-packed with side content that almost makes San Andreas blush. You got your standard vehicle missions, firefighter, paramedic, taxi driver, vigilante, and food delivery jobs, and a new one called Trash Dash that has Tony taking the role of your local waste management consultant.
I'm in the waste management business. Everybody immediately assumes you're mobbed up. It's a stereotype, and it's offensive.
There are rampages, stunt jumps, and hidden packages scattered across the city, and of course the street races, checkpoint stunt missions, and RC vehicle missions were there too. But there were also a dozen or so challenges added to the game as well. Avenging Angels was basically vigilante missions with a cooler name and outfit. You can be both a car and a bike salesman. Carmageddon destruction missions. Taking tourists on a sightseeing tour. Slash TV, where you fight to survive against a bunch of chainsaw wielding lunatics, collecting car models for a radio show giveaway, and a few different flavors of drive-by missions. There is absolutely no shortage of things to get into in this game. Rockstar clearly leaned into this stuff heavily to fit the portable playstyle. They knew this was a handheld game, so they crammed in enough bite-sized chaos to keep you busy through bus rides, bathroom breaks, family dinners, or awkward dates. Hell, if you had 5 free minutes and opposable thumbs, Liberty City had a job job for you. You want to be a hitman, sanitation worker, Uber for tourists, spontaneous chainsaw gladiator? Why not? It's like Rockstar made a to-do list during a fever dream and then actually put it all in the game. While there's no shortage of stuff to do on the side, it's time we talk about the main course and go over the plot to the game. And as always, skip ahead if you don't want any spoilers or if you're just not interested in hearing a story recap. The game opens with our protagonist, Tony Cipriani, returning to Liberty City on a bus. Tony spent some time away due to killing a made man. It's never made clear who he killed, but it was likely some high-ranking member in the Sindaco or Forelli crime family. But what was made clear is that Tony did this job for the boss of the Leone crime family, Salvatore Leone. Tony expects a warm welcome from Sal, maybe a promotion or a big role in the family, but instead Sal passes him off to Vincenzo, a cocky young capo who gives Tony the classic earn your place talk, and Tony immediately hates him, and the feeling is mutual. To make things worse, Vinny sticks him in a filthy apartment.
This shithole is supposed to be my home?
And shortly after this less than ideal welcome, Tony has no choice but to start doing some odd jobs, and as of right now, Vinny is his boss, and he definitely rubs it in immediately.
Just you remember who pays the bills around here. Me, Daddy Vincenzo over here. So from now on, you work for me. So I better see you back here real soon.
Under Vinny, Tony does some small-time jobs, taking out drug dealers, helping Leone guys escape a police shootout, basic muscle work, and it all feels beneath him. And then Vinny crosses a line. He sends Tony to pick up a drug-stuffed car that is under police surveillance. Vinny knew and sent him anyway, and Tony's done after this. He quits and has the car crushed out of spite.
Oh yeah, I understand, Vinny. I understand that as long as I work for you, I get treated like a bitch. Well look, I was making scores while you were looking up girls' skirts. Have your bitch job back, boss. I quit.
Tony, you're making a big...
So things are starting off rough with Tony in the city. And during one of the jobs for Vinny, Tony came across another degenerate to do some work for named JD O'Toole, a sleazy club manager and low-level Sindaco affiliate. JD filmed Tony massacring a bunch of Sindacos at a construction site and planned to sell the snuff footage, but changed sides instead, giving Tony some more work. And the work is mostly screwing over Sindaco operations and helping the Leones get more of a foothold in the red light district. He stops Sindacos raiding a Leone poker game, he helps Salvatore himself escape the club JD runs when police raid it, and ultimately he uses a car bomb to blow up a Sindaco brothel / gambling den. While he was shoveling shit for Vinny and handling Sindacos for JD, Tony also reconnects with his mother, which was a bad idea. She's very upset that he didn't visit right away and constantly insults him, telling him that he's a failure and he'll never live up to his father, and that random guys around town are real men who treat their mothers with respect. To win her approval, and out of sheer spite, Tony hunts down these supposed role models and kills them. The deli owner turns out to be a secret pervert, so naturally Tony grinds him into sausage and sells it at the deli that Ma shops at, which is really odd. He kills a triad leader just to prove he's not a scaredy cat, and beats a Guido street racer, and then kills him too and steals his car. But none of that is enough though. Ma Cipriani still thinks that Tony is worthless and ends up putting a hit on her own son. And even after Tony kills all these hitmen, they keep showing up throughout the game. I don't know what Ma Cipriani paid these guys, but they are seeing this job through till the end. Not surprisingly, this is the last time you hear from your mother for a little bit, but soon enough, Salvatore calls up Tony and gives him some jobs personally, so no more wise guy Vinny for a while. Salvatore is stressed.
Do I look okay?
No.
Then what are you, a fucking moron?
He's dealing with a union boss down on the docks that is disrespecting him. Some broad named Jane Hopper, a little nod to Jimmy Hoffa I'm sure, who Sal helped out by organizing the dock worker strike in the first place. And she's asking Sal for a bribe in order for him to have some cargo pass through while the strike is going on. She's clearly ungrateful to the Don for his contributions. But right now Sal doesn't have the choice but to pay her off, so he has Tony go down to the docks and deliver the money. But this isn't so cut and dry, as she takes Sal's money and says thanks for the donation and has some dock workers try to jump Tony. An odd choice as they all have baseball bats and Tony's got something else. From here, it's war, and Sal decides that he needs to take Hopper out. He has Tony deliver a bunch of hookers to the union workers on strike to keep them busy, and in the meantime, he drives around and lays some heat on the union big shots to keep them in line as well, before he decides it's time to scare Hopper into submission too. She gets on the local radio and starts blabbing about how she's not scared of these mafia guys.
I got bigger balls than all of them.
I should call a hit on this bitch.
So Tony goes down to the radio station and takes over as her limo driver in order to scare her for real, driving erratically and crashing into cars until she agrees to work for Sal once again, making things a little smoother temporarily for the Leone family. At least there's no work to be had at the moment, so Tony kills some time by helping out the Don's lover around town named Maria. Now, as fans of the series, we all know Maria. She and Sal met in Vegas back in the early 90s during a casino takeover, but now she's bored, high, and constantly chasing chaos and drugs. Mostly drugs. But she tries to sleep with anyone who she feels is exciting enough, including both Tony and Claude as well a few years later, leading to most of the bad shit that happens in GTA 3. Anyway, she has Tony take her shopping, which is actually just her shoplifting from various stores and having fun while Tony has to run from the cops. Tony takes her to a drug deal to buy some drugs, which ends up being a Sindaco trap that he then has to save her from. She puts herself up as the prize for a bike race in the city, so Tony has to go and win it to stop her from going off with some other guy, which she ends up going off with anyway, so Tony has to go kill said biker guy. And if that wasn't enough drama, the next time Tony goes to her apartment, Maria has taken so much stuff that she starts to overdose, and Tony then has to drive all around the city looking for some cure called Zap, but all he ends up finding is angry biker dudes because he killed off their main guy, and the Zap was actually just in Maria's apartment all along. After this, he drops Maria off back at Sal's, and just in time for some more work from him after they argue for a little bit.
You're very important to me. Did I ever tell you that?
You can't even get it up, you old bastard.
Not for you. I don't like using public toilets, you slut.
Anyway, Sal has Tony go oversee a drug deal between the Leones and the Colombian cartel. But after some peaceful greetings, the FBI shows up and busts it, making Tony kill the Colombians and steal the drugs and escape, souring that relationship for sure. Meanwhile, things between the Sindacos aren't so sweet either. After visiting JD's club, Tony learns that the Sindacos have kidnapped Salvatore Leone and are taking him to be crushed at the junkyard.
The boss wants him flattered in pizza.
So Tony of course saves his boss and kills any Sindacos in the way, but not surprisingly, hogtying the Don of the family results in some backlash. And since Sal took that personally, he personally joined some thugs on the street to do an armed takeover of JD's club from the Sindacos, while Tony covers him from the rooftops with a sniper rifle. So as the kids say, the block is hot. Amid all this chaos, the Sicilian Mafia shows up claiming that they want to broker peace between the three Liberty City families, Leones, Sindacos, and Forellis. Sal's not buying it. He sends Tony to follow their man, Massimo Torini. Turns out, Torini's cutting backdoor deals with the Diablos and the Triads, promising them a piece of Liberty City in exchange for their cooperation. It's clear the Sicilians want to take over while the other families are distracted in battle. This betrayal has Sal's suspicion of everyone rise off the charts. The next day, Tony and a guy named Mickey escort JD to be made in the Leone family for all of his help. But for some reason, he doesn't catch on to how much that doesn't make sense. Primarily because he's Irish and not Italian, and also he's not a mobster. But he gets in the car anyway, and Tony drives them to the junkyard where Mickey proceeds to shoot and kill JD, simply on the basis that JD might not stay loyal to Sal because he's already double-crossed the Sindacos, so he clearly can't be trusted. Also, instead of just using that car crusher that's literally right next to them when they shoot him, you have to go dump this car in the river for some reason. Driving around with a dead body in the front seat and blood leaking from the car, getting police attention all across the city. Just for fun, I guess. This isn't the only setup happening. In comes a call from Vinny, crawling back, claiming that he wants to make peace with Tony. And Tony doesn't trust it, obviously, but he shows up anyway, and gets ambushed by Vinny's chainsaw-wielding goons. And he kills them all, including Vinny himself, and oddly enough, no one brings this up ever again. Like, the Don doesn't mention once that Tony killed one of his capos. This is classic mob stuff. Because if you know the rules of the Italian mafia, Tony, not being a made man, killing a made man, sentences him to death. Even if he had the right to kill that made man by defending himself, he would still die. But Salvatore just doesn't acknowledge this. Sal does keep Tony busy though. He calls up Tony and has him go down to Hepburn Heights and the Red Light District because the Diablos are making a play on the turf. And soon after, he gets into a tussle with the Triads when trying to get some money from a warehouse that Sal owns. And in this Triad mission, there's a funny little gimmick where Sal gets a new Banshee to drive around with Maria, and it's clear that he isn't really capable of controlling such a fast car, and Maria says that he's just having a midlife crisis. And once you get back from the mission, you find that the car is crashed into a tree in Sal's driveway, so it's a funny little thing in the midst of all this chaos that I really liked. After this though, Sal's paranoia hits an all-time high. Tony walks into his office and Sal greets him with a gun, accusing him of talking behind his back. After realizing he can trust Tony though, he starts to put the blame on the mayor of the city, Roger C. Hole, or Arsehole, because he's trying to pin all of the crime in the city on Sal. And not just the crime that he actually did, but all of the crime, and that's unacceptable. They head over to the ferry to head to Staunton Island to confront the mayor, but they are ambushed by police and the FBI, so Tony is forced to jump over the still under construction bridge in order to get over there.
Punch it, Tony! City streets oh, shit!
And with that, the war is far from over, but for now, Tony and Sal lay low in Staunton Island while the heat dies down back in Portland. They're not laying low too much though, because Staunton Island kicks off with some heat. Salvatore calls up Tony and tells him it's time to whack the mayor, Roger C. Hole. So while he's jogging in the park with his Secret Service, Tony strolls in and plugs him and steals his phone and then casually walks off with just 1 wanted star. Meanwhile, shoplifting with Maria back in Portland got you 3 wanted stars, so there's some weird priorities in Liberty City in 1998. This murder finally earns Tony his stripes. He gets made in the Leone family. He's nervous about getting in the car with Mickey, which is understandable considering what happened to JD not too long ago, but this time it is legit.
Tony, my boy, today's the day you're being made.
Also, Tony's loving mother gives him a call and calls off the hitmen that are still out there trying to kill you, and she is finally proud of her young Anthony.
I never doubted you for a second, son. And seeing as how you finally proven yourself, I'm calling off that contract I put on you. Let's just put it behind us.
After Tony's big day, Sal calls him up and tells him about this big shot businessman running for office, and about how they're going to help him win this election in order to get him in their pockets. This businessman is the infamous Donald Love. Yes, that Donald Love from Grand Theft Auto 3. But in this prequel, he's less of a refined billionaire and more of a coked up freak with a cannibal party fetish. Tony's first job for Donald is to help him with setting up his morgue party, which is exactly what it sounds like. A party where the city's elite get together and literally eat humans. Tony goes out and steals a hearse carrying a fresh corpse and delivers it to Donald's penthouse.
My God, this is good. It tastes just like chicken, but somehow more, sentient.
From here, things get political. Tony cruises around Staunton Island in a campaign van spreading Donald's gospel and taking down his rival Miles O'Donovan, a Forelli puppet. That includes torching his opponent's vans, assassinating campaign workers, and destroying a warehouse full of counterfeit ballots. Donald also publicly condemns vote rigging while Tony literally blows up the ballot machines of the enemy. All this work starts to get the Forellis to retaliate, trying to take out Donald Love as he rides around for publicity in the city, forcing Tony to defend his candidate. Still, the race is neck and neck, so Donald asks Tony to intercept the ballot vans and swap them with modified ones full of fake votes, immediately backpedaling on his vote rigging stance.
What was that you said about vote rigging?
Oh, shut up.
Meanwhile, Sal's been going on some digging of his own. Why was Mayor Hole so laser focused on taking Sal down? He and Tony kidnap the mayor's assistant on a boat, very discreet-like, and get him talking. Turns out the Forellis weren't the only ones pulling strings. The Sicilian Mafia was pressuring the mayor and using the Forellis and the Sindacos as pawns to destabilize Liberty City and set up a takeover. Salvatore smells conspiracy and spies on a Forelli-Sindaco meetup, and it ends up in a shootout because of course it does, and Sal gets pinned down, so Tony has to go bail him out. Sal's suspicions grow when he hears of another potential truce, so he sabotages it with style this time. Tony remote controls Paulie Sindaco's car into a meeting and turns it into a drive-by demolition derby, taking out half of the Forelli leadership in one go. Another truce almost happens after a Forelli informant finds out the Sicilians are playing both sides, but before he can spill the beans, Sal sends Tony to silence him too. Sal's keeping the war alive by force at this point, and he wants these families at each other's throats. Meanwhile, Tony links up with Leon McCaffrey, a dirty cop here to keep the chaos rolling in Sal's favor. Leon is partnered with another greenhorn named Ray Machowski, a familiar corrupt cop face from Grand Theft Auto 3, though in 1998 he's still clean and wants nothing to do with the dirty likes of Tony Cipriani.
Freeze!
Whoa, whoa! Easy. Meet my new partner, Mr. Hip. He's gonna make sure I do everything by the book. Tony Cipriani, Ray Machowski.
Leon has Tony do a variety of jobs to keep the streets dangerous. They take out a bunch of Sindacos in the city to get them stirred up, they set up some Forellis to get ambushed by the Jamaican Yardies gang, and they also slice up some Forellis in the park with a katana, making it look like a hit from the Japanese Yakuza, adding some variety to this complex gang war that's already going on in the city. And to top it all off, Tony also destroys some ammunition supply trucks that the Forellis had moving into the city to arm their goons for this big war. Somewhere in all of this, Tony gets the urge to confess and he goes to church, but Father Ned gives Tony the option to say some Hail Marys or to go do the Lord's dirty work, so Tony does what he's gifted at. Father Ned's requests escalate fast. First, he's stealing documents on athlete doping, then some stolen diamonds, then a fire truck rampage because people are polluting the air with the devil's bum gas, and finally, he has him kill some false idol celebrities because they give radio interviews while refusing to do newspaper articles with real journalists. All very odd jobs, and after each and every one of them, a radio broadcast comes out reporting on the crimes that Tony is doing, with a lot of insider information. So it's not too surprising when Tony returns after killing all these celebrities to the church and he finds out that Father Ned is not a priest at all, but just some guy who used Tony for random jobs.
I've done what you asked, Father.
Great, the paper circulation has tripled since you found your soul.
What?
Thanks again for all your help, Tony.
Hey, what the fuck? Who are you?
After this distraction though, Tony gets a call from a panicked Donald Love who needs Tony to retrieve some evidence that has been discovered linking him to Salvatore Leone, potentially ruining his chances at winning this election. Tony gets the evidence back safe and sound, but it turns out it doesn't matter. As he arrives back to Donald's penthouse, a news broadcast comes out that Donald's open friendship with mobsters like Tony Cipriani, who is standing in his apartment right now, has ruined his reputation and in turn has lost him the race, making him bankrupt as well, $20 million in debt.
$20 million in the hole!
And the hits keep coming. Soon after this, Tony gets a call from Leon telling him that Salvatore is about to get grabbed by the feds, and he tells Tony that they never met, cutting off contact permanently and abruptly with the Leones. And sure enough, moments later, Sal calls Tony and gives him the news that he's locked up in Shoreside Vale. He calls Tony and pretends that he is his lawyer Lionel and asks him to come up and help him out, instead of, I don't know, calling a real lawyer?
I'm up Shit's Creek without a paddle. Now get your ass over here, there's stuff I need you to take care of.
Lionel.
Tony, now a made man, a political saboteur, gang war instigator, and part-time priest errand boy, is heading into the final act with his boss behind bars, enemies on all sides, and the Sicilian mafia closing in. Tony heads to Shoreside Vale, suit freshly pressed and rocking some snazzy new glasses to sell this role of Lionel, Salvatore Leone's personal attorney. After a brief meeting, the first order of business from Sal is to stick it to the Forellis and the Sindacos, because they must have ratted Sal out to get him locked up, so it's revenge time. Tony heads down to some apartments in Shoreside Vale and gets a bunch of Forelli goons to come outside after beating up their cars, and in turn he beats them up too. No, actually he kills them. After that, he heads to hit the Sindacos really hard by going straight for the Don, Paulie Sindaco himself, chasing down his boat as he's trying to escape town and taking him out for good, effectively ending the Sindaco's operations in Liberty City, which is why we don't see them at all in GTA 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, Paulie Sindaco has left the building.
With the Forellis limping and the Sindacos sleeping with the fishes, a new challenger appears in the game. the Yakuza. They're making a move to take over organized crime in the city and even have a weapons compound stocked with a literal tank. Tony kills a bunch of Yakuza men and then dumps the tank in the river, making sure that no side in this war has gear like that. And then effectively calms things down a little bit with all the organized crime operations crippled within the city. Everyone just needs to sit back and lick their wounds for a little bit. And just in time, Donald Love crawls out of the woodwork. Tony finds him hiding in a roach motel looking like a broke survivalist. But Don's got a plan. He wants back on top in the city. He tells Tony that they need to intercept Avery Carrington, who just arrived in Liberty City. You remember Avery from Vice City? You know, southern drawl, cowboy hats, and real estate mentor to Donald Love? Well, now he's working with Panlantic Construction to build up Fort Staunton in Liberty City, and Donald wants him gone. So Tony does the job, but this murder was a lot more high profile than Tony imagined. A reporter happened to snag some photos of Tony killing Avery, probably just trying to do a story on the mogul arriving to the city, but instead he captured a mob hit. So Tony hunts down this reporter and takes him out as he tries to run. And this reporter is Ned Burner, and he's also the priest that Tony did several jobs for back in Staunton Island, so it was only a matter of time before Tony got his hands on him. Donald is of course ecstatic after these course of events. Panlantic has decided to work with Donald after Avery's untimely passing, so Donald is back in business, and as a celebration, he wants to throw a good old-fashioned corpse-eating party, using none other than Avery and Ned's bodies to feast on. He's an odd dude. Tony retrieves the bodies and leaves Donald to his party, and he receives a call from Donald the next day telling him that if they want to do some construction in the city, they'll need to clear some land, so to say.
Yeah, when you say we, you mean me, right?
Tony, you see right through me.
While Donald plans his demolition operations using our friend 8-Ball as an explosive source, Tony gets a call from an unknown woman who wants him to meet her in Staunton Island. This woman turns out to be Toshiko Kasen, the wife of the leader of the Yakuza, Kazuki Kasen. She is a woman scorned by her husband, and she wants to destroy him. Not just have him killed, but destroy everything that he's built. She asks Tony to help her with this as it's in his best interest to do as well, as the Yakuza is planning another attack for control of the city. She has Tony go intercept a shipment of heavy artillery coming into the docks and take it to our favorite one-armed arms dealer, Phil Cassidy, from GTA Vice City Stories, and GTA 3. He's got one brief little speaking line at the end of the mission, and unfortunately it's not Gary Busey taking the role this go around.
Woo-wee! That's some damn fine artillery you got there, boy!
Next up, Tony destroys a few vans carrying money coming from a Yakuza-owned casino in the city. Tony would rather use this cash, but Toshiko wants it destroyed, burning in the streets. Easy enough though, it takes a few seconds with a rocket launcher. After this, Toshiko's husband is getting suspicious on how Tony knows his next moves, and Tony tells Toshiko that he will find out soon enough that it's her behind this, and she decides to lay into that idea by dressing up and going to be seen publicly with Tony on a date to the opera in the city, getting the attention of both the Forellis and the Yakuza. And with this, Kazuki is preparing to come and kill Toshiko and Tony both, but Tony decides to take action and go to him first, going to the rooftop of his casino and dueling him in the rain with samurai swords. Well, Kazuki has a sword and Tony has different traditions. He does take his dead opponent's sword to return it to Toshiko after the duel though, but instead of thanking him, she laments everything. This wasn't revenge, it was an escape, and with her freedom gained, Toshiko takes her own life. She can fly away now, in a manner of speaking, just like the bird that she released from the cage moments earlier.
Goodbye, Tony-san.
Now that that's all settled up, 8-Ball rings up Tony and lets him know that the explosives are ready and it's now time to bring down the house on Fort Staunton, using the explosives along the subway tunnels under the city to cause a whole neighborhood to explode, killing countless people as a result. And this has to be one of the single most terroristic things a GTA protagonist has done, making Tony one grade A asshole in my book. But of course, Donald, a sadistic person in his own merits, is pleased with these occurrences. But unfortunately, it's time for him to flee the city, as the Colombians, who were originally planning to work with Avery on this Pan-Atlantic deal, are pretty mad that Donald is now in charge and cut them out of the plan. So Tony helps him out one last time and escorts him to the airport to allow him to leave. With Donald's acquisitions taken care of, now it's time to settle things with Salvatore. He's up for arraignment and needs Tony to escort him to court. The Sicilian Mafia has other plans, trying to blow up the transport van with a rocket launcher. So Tony fends off the attackers while the van hauls Saul to safety, and somehow the trial ends with Salvatore walking free. Back home, Sal's never been happier. The Forellis made peace, the Sindacos are dead, and even the Sicilians are calling to make nice. But Sal is feeling himself, and he tells the old country mob to go fuck themselves. Sal runs the city, and he doesn't plan on listening to anyone else. And that also includes the mayor, who Tony and Sal go to see personally to get all the charges against Sal dropped. But once they get there, the Sicilians have beaten them to the punch and taken the mayor, so Tony has to kill all the goons there and then head over to the pier in order to chase down the kidnapped head of the city. They get to some small lighthouse island and fight their way to the top before they finally confront the Sicilian underboss himself, Massimo Turini, the main bad guy of the game that we've only really seen once before. He's holding the mayor at gunpoint, and once he realizes he's outgunned with Sal and Tony both there, he jumps into a helicopter and tries his luck from the sky. Tony takes out the chopper with some ease and saves the mayor, lugging him back to Salvatore's home for one last meeting.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, we just saved you from a bunch of crazed Sicilians.
Yeah, thanks.
And that means?
The city is grateful to you.
Ow! Try again.
That you work for me, right?
Oh yeah, that I work for you.
Good. Now don't call us, we'll call you. Get out of here, prick.
Thank you, Mr. Leone.
And with that, Sal is on top once and for all. He runs the city yet again. Well, the family does. And now Tony is Sal's most loyal and high-ranking man, so he too runs the city essentially. There is one final order of business though, to visit Uncle Leone, Sal's uncle and Sicilian mafia head who turns out was backing Turini during this whole takeover attempt. He says all they wanted was clarity on who ran the city, and now with Turini dead, Uncle leaves the city to head back to Sicily, muttering every dog has his day as he limps off, a reference to Scarface and foreshadowing to Salvatore's demise at the hands of Claude in GTA 3. Sal and Tony share some kind words, and Sal thanks Tony for everything that he's done, and that's why he's giving Tony $500,000 that they talked about earlier, which Tony is a bit confused on.
Hey. Ooh, I thought you said a couple.
I said $1 million. For what? You can put a price on friendship? The kind of friendship you and me have? Shame on you. Come here.
Even after all Tony did, he's still shorted by the Don. Liberty City Stories isn't the flashiest Grand Theft Auto game. It doesn't have the open skies of San Andreas, the neon chaos of Vice City, or the emotional weight of Grand Theft Auto 4, but what it does have is bleakness, pure concentrated rot, moral, personal, and institutional, and it's beautiful in the ugliest way possible. This isn't a power fantasy game, it's a slow, grim spiral into a world where everyone is either delusional, disposable, or just dead inside. It starts with Tony Cipriani stepping off of a bus, thinking he's coming home to glory, and he goes from exile to enforcer to finally earning a seat at the table, only to realize that the table sucks. The food is rotten, the chairs are broken, and the guy sitting next to you might be planning to shoot you under it. Sure, Tony climbs the ranks, but he doesn't grow. He doesn't learn. He just gets better at surviving in a city that feeds on people like him. He's made, sure, but what does that even mean? His mom tried to have him whacked. His mentor underpays him. And his biggest win is helping a cannibal real estate mogul blow up half a neighborhood. The game's cast cast is a lineup of walking red flags. Vincenzo is a clown with a power complex, JD's a man with zero dignity and a snuff film habit, Salvatore's clinging to power like a rat on a sinking ship, and Donald Love is the Gordon Ramsay of cannibalism and political corruption. Even Maria's chaos is played out for laughs, until you realize that she's the most honest character in the whole game. The only glimpse of innocence that we have is Toshiko, who was married to a man who never loved her, just used her status to grow his empire, and once she had enough, she destroyed it all, including herself, yet another victim to this city. And Tony, he just survives. That's it. That's his arc. He doesn't grow, he doesn't reflect, he doesn't evolve, he just does the job, takes the hits, and keeps going. Because in Liberty City, that's the win condition. Just don't die. Tony ends the game with more status and more blood on his hands and maybe $500,000, but he has no freedom, no peace, and no soul, which is why we see him in Grand Theft Auto 3 sitting at the same Italian restaurant under the thumb of Leone and still getting bitched at by his mother from the window. Liberty City Stories might have been designed as a portable spin-off, but what it delivers is one of Rockstar's most brutally honest takes on power, family, and what happens when your only ambition is to get ahead in a system that eats everyone alive. It's not about flashy features or groundbreaking tech, it's about peeling back the glitz of this underworld and showing you what's really there. Manipulation, decay, and the illusion of progress. Liberty City Stories might not be the most talked about Grand Theft Auto entry today, but when it dropped in 2005, it was kind of a big deal. Like, your cool cousin shows up to Thanksgiving with a PSP and suddenly no one cares about the mashed potatoes anymore. At launch, Liberty City Stories received strong reviews, with many praising it for being the most ambitious handheld game of its time. IGN named it the best PSP game of 2005. Critics and fans highlighted its faithful recreation of Liberty City from GTA 3, an original storyline that actually mattered, surprising smooth performance for a handheld game, and Rockstar's willingness to push the PSP harder than most developers dared. But there were caveats. Coming right off the heels of San Andreas, some players saw Liberty City Stories as a step backwards in features. There was no swimming, no jetpacks, no character customization. It's like going from a Vegas buffet to a pretty decent food truck. Still delicious, but your options are limited. Despite those limitations though, the game sold incredibly well, becoming the best-selling PSP game of all time. In the United States alone, it sold about 980,000 copies in under a year. It helped push the PSP hardware into more hands and prove that mature open-world games had a legit future on portable systems. It was also later ported to PlayStation 2 and mobile platforms further down the line as well. Basically, Liberty City Stories helped Rockstar plant their flag in handheld territory. This wasn't a gimmick, it was a blueprint. Because 1 year later, in 2006, Rockstar released Vice City Stories, using the same spin-off idea in a familiar setting. Set 2 years before Vice City, you play as Victor Vance, brother of Lance Vance, the guy who betrays Tommy Vercetti in Vice City. It has a bigger map, more polish, and even some jet skis. Technically, it improved in every way from Liberty City Stories, thanks to what Rockstar learned during the development of this game. So Liberty City Stories might not have all the fancy stuff that was in like San Andreas, but it proved that a full-blown Grand Theft Auto experience could fit in your pocket, and still blow it up. It gave us mob drama and political assassinations, remote control car terrorism, and more chainsaw freaks than I'm comfortable with, and somehow it all worked. It may not get the same love as its bigger brothers, but I hate to see all the hate that this game gets from fans of the series, because there's a lot of charm in the writing of the game, and I feel like the story is one of the more deeper and bleak stories in the whole franchise. But just because it lacked some of the mechanics and creature comforts, it kind of falls behind the other entries. I don't think it ranks higher than most other 3D era Grand Theft Auto games, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just the other games are better. I think if you're a fan of Grand Theft Auto and you haven't played Liberty City Stories, you definitely need to give it a shot. With that being said though, it's time to wrap this puppy up and take a flight down south and enjoy another story in Vice City. As always, thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. Peace.